Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Serge De Marre, another voiceover actor. Yo, it's been like voiceover actor season. I love this. Voiceover is the coolest thing, which, to be honest, I knew nothing about until the pandemic came along, which I think is the case for a lot of people. A lot of people were like, well, I have a closet, I can sit in it. Turns out there is so much more to voice acting than I ever thought. And Serge is the person to talk to about it. He is so cool. So he had a career as a radio DJ prior to now full-time voiceover actor. He has a fantastic story to share. I'm so excited for you to hear all he has to say, coming from Europe, now living in the States. He's been all over the place. He has built an incredible career. And if you're watching on YouTube, he's also built an incredible voiceover booth. Please enjoy Serge De Marre. In what looks like the Starship Enterprise.
Well, yeah, it looks like that on camera, but it's not in real life. It's actually a really nice booth. It's a Studio Bricks. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the brand.
No, cool.
So the booths are made in Spain, and they're sort of like Legos. So you don't, when they they arrive in like a big pack, completely apart, and then you have to slide all the pieces together. You don't have to use a hammer or a drill or whatever. You got to screw in a couple of things, but that's it.
Yeah.
And they're so nice. Look at this. It's so nice.
It's so nice.
It's so cozy as well. So whenever I'm in here, it feels very cozy and it makes me feel relaxed. And that's so good for voiceover work, right?
Yes.
Because you got to feel relaxed. And right now I have the door a little bit open because we're not really in a voiceover session. This is just a podcast, but to get some air because it gets really hot in here after a while.
Well, and it's so interesting you say that. Like, it makes you feel relaxed, right? Because there's the joke, and I wish I could take credit for this, about like you're literally in a padded room, and that makes like nobody would feel relaxed in a padded room.
No,
and especially because in like voiceover land, the room that you live in is so quote unquote plain that you have to vividly imagine the world that you're trying to create with just your voice. How in the world would you stay relaxed doing that? So I think it's so cool that you feel so relaxed in that space.
Yeah. So, I mean, not everyone, and neither did I. I didn't start out like this. I didn't have the money to buy this booth. And I wasn't making enough money in voiceovers. So as soon as I had this, I was able to buy this. I was like, wow, and I started out I've recorded commercials in my car because that's a good installation, right? Especially if you have like the luxury brands, a Bentley, for example. If you have a Bentley accidentally, then that's perfect to record in. Just kidding, of course. But no, cars are excellent. And I started out in my car, and then I built something with 2 mattresses. And then at one point I was like, I gotta buy a booth. And because for live directed sessions, you want to be relaxed too. The client dials in and you don't want that truck that passes by or the lawnmower or whatever in your recordings. And I was always stressed about that. But this is perfect. You close the door and it's perfect. So, and you feel relaxed. You can concentrate on the script. You can concentrate on the client or whatever. And it's just, And it feels cozy and homey in here, and I put in the lights, and it's awesome.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business of voiceover?
Right. So I'm originally from Belgium, in Europe, and I live
in
one
of my favorite countries, by the way. I'm sorry.
You have been to Belgium?
Yes, I loved it. I was in Brussels. I've been to Brussels. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It. So you saw Monica Piss?
Yes.
The little tiny guy who's peeing all the time.
Yep.
I think it's a disappointment, but it's very popular for tourists, so sure. I think I've only seen him once or twice, but anyway. Yeah, so I'm from Belgium, moved to the US in 2010. And in Belgium, back in the 2000s, I started out at a small radio station with only like 10K listeners per day. So I volunteered there and I got a little bit of money per month. I think like $100 a month to do a show like every Sunday for 4 hours. But I loved it. So I loved radio, and I made my way up all to the national radio station in Belgium, which has, back in the day, I'm not sure about now, but a commercial station with a million listeners per day, so it's quite big. And once I got there, I was like, well, I want to do some voiceovers as well. So, and that's how, I sort of used my position at the radio station, because it was such a big radio station, to get into voiceovers, and slowly I got into voiceovers. Then I moved to the United States, couldn't do my radio show anymore, obviously. And after a while, I just decided to go full-time into voiceovers. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's the short story. It's a little bit longer than that.
Well, yeah, I'm curious, like when you were a kid, was this something that you always had wanted to do, like work in radio, work in a kind of a creative field, broadcasting? How did that come about? Did you go to school for that?
No, there is no radio or voice acting school, or even there is an acting school in Belgium, but not for. I think these days radio, there is a radio school, but back in the day, when I was young, there was no school for radio people or voice actors. But I don't know. I always was obsessed with radio, and there never was a thought of me getting into radio. But I loved radio. It was just I think my grandparents gave me a tiny radio when I was about like 6 or 7 years old, and I got obsessed with it, listening to all the radio stations and recording music and I just was obsessed with it. And then after a while, I never thought about it. Like, I played radio at home with a little microphone with my brother and everything, and it was terrible, but it was fun. But I never thought of like, maybe I should go into radio, because I was like, no, I could never do that. It's all the big stars, are making radio, and then somehow, I think when I was 18 back in the 2000s, I was online in a chat room, and I accidentally met one of my older, someone who went to school with me. And he was like, I work at a local radio station now, small local radio station. Do you want to come over and see how that all goes? And while I'm doing my show, and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So I went over there, sat through his show like for 4 hours, and then afterwards he was like, well, he put the studio off air, and then he was like, well, why don't you try a little bit? So, and he recorded that, and then that ended up on the station manager's desk. The station manager listened to it, and a couple of weeks later he called me up and was like, hey, I got your recordings here, and I kind of like it. And there's someone's leaving on Sunday. Someone's going away, so there's a slot opening up. Do you want to do that? And I was like, what? I know nothing about radio, but yes. And it was like, we don't pay you. You get like 75 euros a month, which is $100 a month for 4 shows, 16 hours. I was like, well, sure. So that's how I started. Yeah.
That's one of those things, and I think the term is like synchronicity, when things kind of happen and you're like, what a coincidence. Like, what are the chances? What are the fates? Like, what?
Right.
What? And then that just being a thing that you love to do, turning into now a career.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But it didn't feel that way back in the day. It was just, I was playing around. I was still going to university, I was studying, and, this is fun, some fun things to do, hang out with friends and playing radio and whatever. It was all not, it was not professional at all. I didn't know what I was doing. And but slowly I learned, and I listened to more radio stations, other radio hosts, and try to copy all that and everything. But looking back at it now, I'm like, this is actually an incredible story, right?
Yeah.
It's just so random.
I
Yep.
love that.
Yeah.
Was like, when you were in university, were you studying something to become like the logical career path that everyone says you need to do?
I didn't know what to study. I mean, I wasn't the smartest kid anyway, and I was like, what the hell should I do? So I started communications, studying communications. After 3 years, I was done with that, and then I was like, I don't know what to do with this degree. I mean, I still cannot build a I don't know, a closet or something out of wood. I can't do anything. What do I do with this? And and then I kept doing radio and got into TV as well for a while, behind the scenes as a sound engineer on the field for a news channel, and so it's all like very random, basically. Yeah.
It's kind of like, this sounds a bit like a negative word, but like piecemeal, like patchworking, like putting it all like, oh, I did this and then I did that, and I did this and then I did that, and it became a quilt, and now I'm a voiceover artist, right? Like, I love that. That's really cool.
For sure. Yeah.
Now, in a career like voiceover, where like how do you learn how to become a voiceover artist? Like, did you train? How do you build a career, especially moving countries?
Right. Yeah, so I sort of had already connections when I was living in Belgium, and I had returning clients, not that many, and I wasn't really thinking about this is a business or something. I wasn't thinking about marketing. I wasn't thinking about anything because I was doing my radio show, and this was just something on the side. It was like, I like doing voiceovers, but the networking was like very important at that point. Back in Belgium, I'm not sure how that was back then in the United States. But then moving to the US, my English wasn't very good. I mean, basic English with a thicker accent than I have now. I couldn't find the words and everything, but yeah, I learned a lot. And then at one point, a client of mine, actually voicebooking.com, they're like pretty huge in Europe. I went over there and visited them, and they were like there were people working there from other countries, from France and Germany and whatever. So we had to speak English, and they said, "Well, your English is actually really, really good. We should put you on our website, not only for your native language, for Flemish, but also for international English." And I was like, "Oh, really? Seriously? My English? I mean, I'm not good at this." But I was like, sure, let's do it, Yes, I'm the yes man. So I said yes, and so they put me on their website, and suddenly I got a ton of work from that. I was like, what? People are looking for that? For like an accent, especially in Europe, I guess, when clients don't want British English or American English, but they want something exotic. That's and then I started thinking, maybe I should turn this into a real business, Started doing marketing, update my website, demos, and that's how it sort of took off. But your question was, how do you learn it, right? How do you learn all that? I think taking classes, getting coaching classes, that's really important. Looking at what other people are doing, trying to like steal little things from other people, and make it your own. Like, oh, I like that idea. I'm just going to do something else with it. Like put my flavor on top of it. And I feel like I'm still doing that constantly, listening to other people, going online, listening to commercials. Whenever I was commuting to the radio station back in the day, back in Belgium, I always, on my way over there, I listened to the radio and turned up the volume during the commercials, and I listened to the commercials, tried to mimic those intonations and everything, the tone of voice, and see if I could do it better or not, hop into my own little studio. I was obsessed about those things.
Well, I think that's really an interesting thing to think about is the training of it. And I know a lot of people, especially with, it's going to sound terrible, but like, especially with voice acting, there is that sense of like, well, you just talk.
Right.
So isn't it easy? Like, why do you have to take a class on how to talk? Don't you already know how to do it? Like, but I know I'm not experienced in voiceover, but there seems to be such distinctive like specializations, right?
Yeah.
Audiobook, commercial, video games, animation.
Yeah.
Like, did you train in those specializations, or do you feel like, oh, I know I am more of a this voice actor, and no, it's not just talking because of this.
Yeah, for sure. I specialize in commercials and web videos, corporate videos, corporate narration, e-learning. I don't do a ton of games, or I have never done a game, by the way. No animation. If it's for a commercial and it has to have like an animated character in there, and I can do that. That's fine. But like a full movie or a game, that's next level. That's just so yeah. And there are people that are specialized in just that and not in commercials, so it's completely different. And to be honest, I taught myself a lot by listening to other people, and then I knew I was doing some things that I knew they were good, but I didn't know why I was doing them, And then with a coach, they sort of had like a structure or sort of like theories, and you got to do this, and this. And I was like, but I'm already doing this. But now I understand why I'm doing this, And that helped me a lot, so I could actually implement it more and be more conscious about it. Like, reading a script and then, okay, I can do this, and this in this script, for example, to make it sound different from my previous read or from what someone else is doing. So, yeah, it helps a lot to make you aware of what you're exactly doing. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think so often when I talk to people who do voiceover, and, we were kind of talking a little bit about this before we started recording about, you're in this booth, you have to have such a vivid imagination.
Yeah.
And from what I've learned is, especially with commercials, you have to be talking to someone.
Yeah.
And has that always been you? Have you always been somebody with a really vivid imagination who's been able to be like, yeah, I'm in this room, but I know exactly who I'm talking to. I can picture them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But once again, I didn't really realize I should do that, or I should have done that. It's just like, but coaching brought all that up. Like, how do you do that? How do you... it's all life experiences. Now I realize whenever I see a script, I'm like, oh, this is probably the setting or the scene that they're going for, and I can pull up memories from whenever, or maybe that one time I was in a grocery store, blah, 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 and that happened. Okay, let's try that, grab that, put that in my mind, and just go for it,
Yeah.
But it took, obviously it takes a while before you get there. It's not from the first moment.
Yeah.
As an actor, as a on-camera actor, it's the same thing, I guess, right? You learn constantly, and there's an evolution in your way of acting. So, yeah.
It's funny. Do you ever listen back to any of your old voiceovers and go, I'm just saying the words? Like, because it's funny when I say like, you have to have somebody that you're speaking to. And I'm like, would I even hear the difference between me saying like ABC 1 2 3, but then saying ABC 1 2 3, but knowing that I'm speaking to like my nephew who's 6, and then I listen to it back, I'm like, oh, there's a huge difference, just that subtle little shift.
Yep.
Do you notice that as well too?
Oh yes,
yeah,
I do.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I sometimes listen back to something I've done before, like many years ago, and I'm like, back in the day, I thought this was good, but now I would have done it differently. So yeah, I think that's normal. No, we're just getting better. We're learning all the time. We get new life experiences, and the world changes too. That's also like a big thing. The world around us. Back in the day, announcery reads were very hip and hot, but now, you get nowhere with the announcer voice.
That's super interesting. The changes in trends.
Yeah, for sure. The TikTok generation is more relaxed, It's just like they don't give a. Can I say fuck? They don't give a fuck.
Totally. Yeah.
It's like So you got to practice that read as well. So it's really interesting. So that's stuff that I would be doing now that I never would have thought of a couple of years ago that I would be doing.
And it's interesting to think about, and I wonder, and I know it's every industry, every part of the film industry is all about like who is the consumer, but like in commercials, you're literally like who is buying stuff now?
Yeah.
It's the millennials and younger, and they don't want to hear, like you were saying, the announcer voice of God, the old white British dude.
Yeah.
They want to hear themselves.
And also, so if you're a brand and you're advertising on TikTok, for example, people are scrolling on, swiping on TikTok, and then suddenly they see something completely different from what they've been seeing, like an actual announcer commercial, you know, they're going to be like out of the zone. But if it's in the same style as the reels or the TikToks they're watching, then it doesn't jump out as much, you know. It's just and it's like in the style of the whole app. So that's important too. So because especially young people, they don't like watching commercials. No one likes to watch commercials, you know. No one likes them except for me and the voiceover. Yeah. I'm like always commercials. Oh, this is so cool. But a lot of people don't like them. So, yeah, I think brands are looking for ways to make their commercials not seem like a commercial, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, like, have you noticed anything, like, has anything been surprising to you throughout your career, like, as it's evolved?
You mean like in a commercial or...
Yeah, or even just like since the beginning, or even when you started, you were like, oh, this is not what I expected. I didn't know that. Anything that's been kind of like, oh, kind of a shock?
Well, I think, for example, when I moved to the US, you know, I was sort of like anxious about losing my clients in Belgium because I thought I was at a disadvantage because I moved away to a different time zone. I was like, so my mornings here are afternoons in Europe, and clients will be emailing and trying to contact me in their morning, and I won't be able to answer the emails or the calls because I'm sleeping, you know? And I was really anxious about that, and I sort of like never mentioned that I moved away. I was like, I'm not going to say that I'm in a different time zone because it's just going to be a disadvantage. And after a while, I figured out like, well, actually, it's an advantage. I'm different than anyone else. Also, I can tell clients, hey, if you email me your script at 8 p.m. European time, which is 1 p.m. my time, I still have plenty of time to record, so I can deliver your recording by the next morning, you know? So that's an advantage.
Yeah.
Same thing with the language thing. I was always like, yeah, if I'm going to get into English voiceovers, I need to get rid of my accent because I'm never going to be able to compete and blah, blah, blah. So I took dialect classes. I worked with a dialect coach, and it was really tough, you know, like, oh. And then after a while, I figured out, but wait a second, this accent is an advantage for me because it makes me unique. So, and I think we're evolving into especially the voice acting world or the voiceover world. We're looking for authenticity and for unique people, and that is something completely different with what was happening in the past. Yeah, we're looking for people, brands and clients are looking for real people, for authentic people. So I think that all the things that I thought was a disadvantage is actually an advantage for me. So yeah.
And again, I wonder, like, again, as time marches on and trends change, obviously that's going to shift and whatever. But have you noticed any changes since the pandemic? Because the pandemic to me is when I learned that there was such a thing called voiceover, because it seemed like everyone was trying to do it.
That is very true. We saw a lot of people coming into the industry. I mean, because there are also coaches that are online advertising like, hey, make $1 million in 10 seconds. It doesn't work that way. Spoiler alert. But,
what?
Right. Oh, excuse me. But a lot of people thought, well, I'm at home and I'm stuck at home, so why not get into voiceover? They bought a little bit of equipment, some gear, blah blah blah, and got into voice acting, and that flooded the industry with voice actors for a little bit. I think that's now going away. Some more, but style-wise, definitely during the pandemic, everything was more sober. Oh, it's such a difficult time right now, but we gotta stay strong. And we're Domino's Pizza, and we think about you. We deliver your pizza to your home. But yes, stay strong. That was more like the tone of voice for the commercials or for the web videos. We're here for you. Just dial our phone number or order on the app, and it'll be delivered. And it's no contact delivery and everything. So yeah, that definitely was a huge difference. Yeah, and then afterwards there was hope. The vaccines were there, and we were about to see that COVID was slowly going away. So yes, there's hope. And then you could all hear that in commercials and web videos, for sure.
It's so funny because I'm just thinking of this now. I'm like, when I don't know, I was about to say when aliens listen to what happened, or like when archaeologists dig up whatever, like nothing more so, I think, will show indicative of the times more than advertising.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's like the driving force of society, especially in the first world, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And the trends, that's so interesting to me.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anyone who's interested in a career in voiceover, especially coming into it later on in life?
I think right now it's really difficult to get into voice acting, unless you're a celebrity. I've just started a new company with a couple of other voice actors, Voiceover for the Planet, and it's sort of like a collective of voice actors, and we're trying to get work through our collective. And the plan is, and I'm going somewhere with this story, but the plan is to try to find work through Voiceover for the Planet, and we are doing the buy one, give one model. So we're part of 1% for the Planet. Those are companies that give 1% of their revenue to nonprofits, to environmental causes. And the idea we had was, well, if someone buys a voiceover from us, we can give one voiceover for free to a nonprofit who cannot afford one, We're trying to set this up, and it's like really, really tough. It's really difficult to find to connect to the right person, to find the right clients, It's not easy. And I think we have a good business model here, because we're looking for like-minded people that are thinking the same way. But it's so tough. We've been working on this for several months now, and it's just slowly going. So when you get into it, you have to be very, very patient, and you have to be really, really good at this point. You have to have the right gear, like a nice booth and a good microphone, because a lot of voice actors, especially in the United States, have all that equipment, the good equipment and the training and everything. So the bar is really, really high. So you have to be really, really good. And I think there is sort of like a lead period. You have to try to be better, try to get coaching and everything. That's obviously not free. And it takes a while to get there, and then you have to find the right clients. But all that said, don't listen to me and just go for it if you want to get into voiceover, because there are exceptions. People will. I know people who started out like a couple of years ago, and like in 6 months they made 6 figures or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what? How do you do that? I'm jealous. I've been working at this for so long, and I make 6 figures now, but it took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's where, and I know I've had this discussion with people across the board in the film industry, in wherever they are in the film industry, and why it's such a, one, frustrating industry to get into, but two, an industry that when you're in it, people are like, well, must be nice of a career in whimsy, blah, blah, blah. Because there are so many stories of like the plucked from obscurity people who were found in a shopping mall.
Right.
Who then are now, who they, quote, did no quote unquote work. They just got lucky.
Yeah. I don't think those stories are true, by the way, right?
Interesting.
Because, no, don't you think so? Because, I mean, I cannot imagine, I mean, some of them are obviously true, but I cannot imagine that it must be someone who's taking classes, who's interested into acting, is trying to do all the right things, and then, I don't know, someone found them, but they still had talent or were working for it for so long, or don't you think so?
Yeah, I think there are so many stories of, the actor who it's like, look, a rising star, where did they come from? And the actor's like, I've been waiting tables in New York City for 20 years. I've been here. I've been here.
Yeah.
But then I wonder if, and then there always are those stories of like, and maybe not the shopping mall anymore. This isn't the 90s where it's like, oh, I found this girl and she was so pretty. And I was like, you're going to be a model, kid. But I wonder if, especially now with, like you were saying, like the TikTok generation, the fast, something like fast fashion where you can become, it's more like the 15 minutes of fame. You make a Netflix show, it lasts for one season, then they cancel it. Right? Or like you don't have those like legacy stars as much anymore. Because I think we are as a society, so we get bored so easily and kind of want the newest thing. So the industry is looking for like the newest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. I also think that it's, the industry or the world is a lot more splintered. There are people on TikTok that are super, super popular, have millions of views, and I have never heard of them because I'm not on TikTok, by the way. But so that doesn't help. But I mean, like, and for example, Mr. Beast. Do you know Mr. Beast, the YouTube guy? He has he's the most. Well, you don't know him. Well, he's the most watched guy on YouTube, and he is making, I don't know how much money, but tons of money. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of him until I think about a year or two ago or something. And I was like, how come I don't know this guy? And his videos get like millions of views. He's selling chocolate now at Target, and you got to look him up, Mr. Beast on YouTube.
I'm going to, yes.
Not that I am so in love with his videos. I'm probably not his target group, but so that's what I mean. Like, there are several sort of like celebrities, but we don't know them because everything is so splintered. So I think the celebrity, the Taylor Swifts of this world and Selena Gomez and whatever, I think they are sort of like disappearing. It's much more difficult to get there unless you have multiple target groups that like you and that are watching you. Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this also makes me think of, I remember having this discussion with a producer about like actors that they're hiring. And for a while there, this is a couple of years ago, this big studios wanted to hire influencers to be in movies because they were like, they're super popular on TikTok, on YouTube. Let's put them in our films. They were, terrible actors. Right. But they're like, who cares? They have an audience. They come with an audience pre-made. Yep. The problem was their pre-made audience doesn't go to the movies. Right. They watch their movies on their phone. They don't watch movies. They watch TikToks. Yeah. Yeah. So the big production houses were like, right? Again, it's the trends. It's all moving like that. And the splintering. So yeah, you need to still have your like niche group, not just be on TikTok, but also be like, yes, I will still watch classic Netflix. I will still watch cable TV. Right. It's so interesting to me these days.
It is.
It's a completely different world that I think a lot of people were hoping to get into.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that all that makes it more difficult to get into acting or voice acting, and even when you're an influencer and you have 1 million followers or 20 million followers, there's still a lot of people that don't know you because you're not in the news all day, or you don't it's I don't know, it's a tough world, yeah.
Yeah. So in the tough world of voiceover, what keeps you in it? Like, what do you love so much about? I know, right?
It's so tough. Oh, help me, please.
Hard out here.
I just love what I'm doing. I just like it. I don't know. It gives me a fulfillment when I create something and something that I can be proud of, and then a video comes out and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. This is great. And my voice like helped that project become better, or I love that. And I like to experiment with different types of, with different characters or different tones of voice, or it's just, that's what keeps me going. And also, since I move a lot, because my husband, he has a completely different job, an office job. He's in finance, and we move around a lot. So like approximately every 2 years we move.
Wow.
And this is perfect for me because I can take my booth, I can take my equipment, my computer, blah, 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 take it with me and just move everything. So a couple of years ago, we moved from Dallas, Texas to Hungary, to Budapest. And I lived there. We lived there for 2 years. So, but I could just continue my work, right? So I just had to tell my clients, hey, I'm going to be out of my booth for 2 weeks because I need to move, but then I'll be back. And and it seems like nothing ever happened. And that's super convenient too, that you can, I love being self-employed and having my own business, and I can work whenever I want and I cannot work whenever I want. That's all like an added bonus for sure. And it's such fun to meet new people all the time, talk to you, be on podcasts, let's just tell my story, listen to other people's stories, and
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite memories of your time in the booth? Any funny stories?
Yeah, for sure. So there was this one time I was in a live directed session, and we were recording a serious script for a corporate video. I can't remember exactly what it was, but and the client was like super impressed. He was like, "Oh, you can do all these different tones of voice," and and I joked, "Well, yeah, I mean, I can do. I'm a professional voice actor, Yeah. Do you want me to give?" I jokingly said, "Like, do you want me to give you a take Disney style, like very?" And they were like, "Oh, can you do that? Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I read the script Disney style. It's like, in a world, like very warm, totally not tailored to that script. Obviously, they were not going to use it, but they laughed so hard, and it was just so heartwarming that they were like, "Oh, this is so awesome. We're obviously not going to use that for our video, but this is so awesome. Thank you so much." So yeah, that was really fun.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
That just like brings in the play, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I was allowed to play. What else am I allowed to do than that in this crazy world? That's so
what
wonderful.
I think? I mean, I'm a little bit of a shy guy. I would love to be on camera and the big shot and everything, but I'm too shy for it. But in my booth, I'm here by myself. No one can see me, and I can act crazy, and no one's going to judge me. I mean, they might judge me, but I just turn off the camera where I end the conversation or whatever. But they never judge me, So that's really fun. And that's what I liked about radio back in the day as well. I was all alone in the studio. It felt like I was alone, and I could do crazy things, say crazy, funny stuff, try new jokes or whatever, and it seemed to me like no one was listening, although we had like a lot of listeners. And that's the same with this, right? You can be expressive, but still feel like you're not making a fool of yourself in front of 1 million people.
Yeah.
So that helps too. But I have horror stories too, where I was in a studio on location with 9 people for a commercial for a bank, and it took too long to get everything recorded, and they were like discussing. The 9 people were like, "Well, do you want this? Tone of voice." And after, I think, 2 or 3 hours, I was like sweating because this is not normal for a 30-second commercial, you know. And okay, everyone was happy. I go home, and later on the next day or something, I hear they went with a different voice. I was like, what? So that's obviously not fun. But yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Less fun.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything that you are looking forward to coming up?
Absolutely. Our new project, Voiceover for the Planet. That is something we've been working on that with the four of us, basically. And then we have a bunch of members, people that are voice actors and are not taking the decisions, but helping us with everything. And that is, I mean, I'm so excited about that project because we want to do something good for the planet and for the world and for the nonprofits and everything. And we were trying to figure out, obviously we wanted to do everything for free for nonprofits, but that's not possible, right? You gotta make money and eat, and it's a business, and everything costs money. So we came up with this awesome idea of the buy one, give one. And that's just, I'm so excited. I can't wait. I know it's gonna take off. I just don't know when. I know it's a hit. The reactions we get from people is just amazing, from the people that are in nonprofits that we try to help, and from people that are interested in doing good for the planet but have a business. They're all like, "Oh, this is an awesome idea. We love it. So yeah, we want to book you. We don't have work right now, but we want to book you guys as soon as we have work." And I think this is going to be so much fun. To work on that.
Do you have, is there a website or anything like that I can go to?
For sure.
We can link in the show notes below.
Yes. Voiceoverfortheplanet.com is the website.
So
and even if you're a voice actor, a professional, we're always looking for new people. Even if you're a voice actor and you think this is something that you like, and once in a while you want to do a free voiceover for free, I mean, you can get donation credits for it as well. So it's not really free, you know, like you can get something out of it. You can join us as well, or give your information, or if you're interested in helping us with buying voiceovers, then go to our website, voiceoverfortheplanet.com as well. Yeah.
I love it. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Just be yourself. I think that's the thing that I absolutely learned throughout the years. I'm now 43, I think. How old am I? That's something that I learned. Like when I was younger, I was always trying to be someone else and trying to be the best version of not myself, you know, like someone else. And I feel like if you're just yourself and with all your flaws, other people will think your flaws are not flaws. Like, yeah, just with the accent. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I was trying to change myself, and I think that's not necessary. So that's really my advice. And keep going at it. Just if you want to get somewhere, just go for it. You just got to keep going, and someday it'll happen.
I love it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Serge, for being my guest this week. Everyone, you just heard me fangirl over not only the actor himself, but the incredible initiative that he has started with some of his voiceover colleagues. I'm looking at the website right now. voiceoverfortheplanet.com. The link is in the show notes below. Once again, it's voiceoverfortheplanet.com. He talked about it in the episode. It is an incredible initiative. So if you're interested as a voiceover actor to get involved, link in the show notes below. But also, if you're a business interested in doing a little something good for the planet, for the world, for voiceover actors, definitely check out this initiative. It is a wonderful, wonderful project. Of course, as always happens, when I stopped the recording, literal gold spewed out of Serge's mouth, which he did in the episode, but we were talking about how, you know, he really believes, and I fully agree with him, that we as humans can just do that little bit extra more to do something for the planet, it'll all be a better place. And, just don't be garbage people. So if you're interested in doing a little something, check out the link in the show notes below, voiceoverfortheplanet.com. I hope you all join me next week by tuning in for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!